The moon hung low over the mist-shrouded town of Ravenswood, its pallid glow casting elongated shadows that twisted like skeletal fingers across the cobblestone streets. Olivia tightened her woolen shawl around her slender frame, her auburn curls brushing against her cheeks as a chill wind whispered secrets through the alleys. The silent houses loomed with an oppressive weight, their darkened windows concealing whispers of unease that had settled over the town like a specter. Tonight, the familiar path to the hospital felt different, each footfall echoing with an urgency she couldn't quite name. Dr. Victor Harlow moved through the sterile corridors with a grace that belied the whispers surrounding him. His hands, encased in immaculate gloves, were instruments of miracles, or so the tales went. A white mask obscured his features, a peculiar affectation excused by rumors of disfigurement. Olivia watched him from a distance, her emerald eyes reflecting both admiration and a gnawing apprehension. There was a precision to his movements, a relentless pursuit of perfection that teetered on the edge of obsession. Beneath the mask she sensed a restlessness, a flicker of something dark that sent a shiver coursing down her spine whenever his gaze met hers. Late nights at the hospital had become a tapestry of unanswered questions. Patients vanished from their beds without discharge papers, their personal effects left untouched. Charts went missing, and records were altered or erased as if those people had never existed. Olivia's concern swelled with each anomaly, but inquiries were met with dismissive glances or terse reassurances that only deepened her suspicions. The other nurses avoided her gaze, their silence a stark contrast to the unspoken dread that lingered in their eyes. Haunted by fragments of conversation and the distant hum of machinery from the abandoned East Wing, she felt the weight of a truth too terrible to ignore. Driven by a resolute need to uncover what lay beneath the hospital's pristine facade, Olivia embarked on a solitary journey into the bowels of the building. The air grew stale as she descended the dimly lit stairwell, each step echoing like a heartbeat in the quiet. A heavy door barred her way, its surface cold to the touch. Gathering her courage, she pushed it open to reveal a chamber bathed in an otherworldly glow. The sight that greeted her stilled her breath. A labyrinth of medical equipment intertwined with archaic devices, and along the walls jars filled with grotesque specimens suspended in murky fluid. At the center stood Dr. Harlow, his mask splattered with fresh crimson, hunched over an operating table where the lifeless form of a patient lay mutilated beyond recognition. Horror rooted Olivia in place as Dr. Harlow turned slowly, the intensity of his gaze piercing through the slits of his mask. "Ah, Nurse Olivia," he intoned softly, his voice a velvety whisper that dripped with menace. "You've ventured far beyond your duties." The glint of a scalpel in his hand caught the light, and panic surged within her. "Why?" she gasped, her voice barely more than a tremor. His eyes flickered with a manic fervor. "Perfection demands sacrifice," he replied. "These imperfections must be purged for the greater good." As he advanced, Olivia's paralysis broke, and she bolted toward the door, the sound of his footsteps a relentless pursuit. The labyrinthine corridors twisted and turned, the shadows seeming to conspire against her escape. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she burst into the main foyer, desperately seeking aid. Yet the hall was eerily empty, the usual bustle replaced by a suffocating silence. Suddenly, figures emerged from the shadows. The townspeople, their expressions vacant and unsettlingly serene. Relief turned to dread as she noticed the subtle irregularities, the way their movements synchronized unnaturally, the identical masks obscuring their faces. Dr. Harlow's voice echoed behind her. "You see, they understand the necessity of my work." The crowd parted as he approached, and Olivia realized with mounting terror that she was surrounded. Her pleas fell upon deaf ears as gloved hands seized her arms, the collective grip of the townsfolk unyielding. "Join us," they chanted in monotonous unison. Struggling futilely, she watched as Dr. Harlow prepared a syringe, the liquid within shimmering ominously. "This will only hurt for a moment," he assured, his calm demeanor more terrifying than any threat. The needle pierced her skin, a searing pain radiating outward before the world began to blur. Darkness enveloped her, the last sound being the synchronized heartbeat of a town surrendered to madness. When consciousness returned, Olivia found herself lying in a pristine room, bathed in sterile white light. She sat up abruptly, her reflection staring back from a mirrored wall. A mask concealed her face, identical to the others. Frantic, she tore it away to reveal skin too smooth, features subtly altered. Panic gave way to a hollow realization. She had become another canvas for Dr. Harlow's twisted artistry. Rising unsteadily, she ventured into the streets of Ravenswood, where life continued with unsettling normalcy. The townspeople moved with mechanical precision, their eyes devoid of spark, each a perfect replica of the next. Despair weighed heavily upon her as she wandered through the town that had become a living mausoleum of individuality. The vibrant tapestry of humanity had been replaced with a monochromatic nightmare, all under the guise of perfection. Olivia's screams echoed unheard, lost in the orchestrated harmony of a collective stripped of its soul. In the end, it was not the monstrosity of Dr. Harlow's actions that haunted her deepest. It was the silent complicity of those who embraced the erasure of self, the surrender to an ideal that demanded their very humanity as the price. And as she stood among them, a solitary tear traced down her altered cheek, signifying the last vestige of the person she once had been in a world that no longer recognized her existence.